In the interview, we agreed that Nick Clegg was actually quite a risk taker, which is really what you were as a leader too. How can he take risks over the next 12 months to make him make the electorate think that he's different from the other two?
Look, it's a brave attempt, but I'm not responding to it. It's up to Nick Clegg to make his decisions, not me, to take those opportunities. I mean, just remember that it took a long time for me to get myself established, much longer than it's taken Nick. That certain things happened. Hong Kong passports was one, the Iraq War was the Gulf War was the second, Bosnia was the third. That enabled me to get some definition. That enabled the public to understand who I was and what my party stood for, and that was important. But you must take those choices when they arrive. The one piece of advice I'd give to Nick is, don't listen to old war horses trying to give you advice from the back seat. He's got to make his own decision about what will happen, and I personally think he's a person of quite exceptional political talent, and when the public comes to look at him, having turned away from the thinness of the gruel being offered by the Tories and being fed up with Labour, which will happen in the course of the election, what they see they're going to like. But how he plays his hand, that's up to him to decide.
Let's go back a bit. How did your background in Northern Ireland inform your politics as a youngster?
I don't think my background in Northern Ireland informed my politics, though it certainly shaped my view about this conundrum that has always obsessed and perplexed me, which is how thin the veil of civilization is that keeps us from the violence and primitivity of the brutes. I mean, we take this thing called civilization and tolerant values, and we take it as though it was permanent, and it's not. The revelation to me of India when I was there during the partition riots, of Northern Ireland, and again of Bosnia, is that this thing behind which we shelter, thinking it can never go away, can be torn down in a single night. And when it goes, what neighbour can do to neighbour, neighbours who have chatted over the garden wall and kids go to the same school, becomes almost indescribable and unfathomable in terms of its horror. And once torn down, it then takes decades to pull back. And so that, I think, is the revelation of Northern Ireland. And I confess to the fact that in the book I say this has been a subterranean stream that has submerged and re-emerged. It began a trip down when I was 4 years old through partition India. When my first sight peeping through the skirts, my mother's skirts, was a platform literally filled from end to end with dismembered and disemboweled bodies. And then Northern Ireland when it came back, and then of course the horrors of Bosnia. And I am completely perplexed by this. Whenever I see it, I want to get, I don't know what causes this to happen. It horrifies and perplexes me. So I don't think it shaped that. I don't shape my politics, but it certainly shaped that, and was part of this, as I call it, the subterranean stream. The thing that shaped my politics was my own dad, really. He was an Indian Army colonel. He was quite an intellectual bully. He had three real passions: fishing, shooting, and disputatious arguments. And he would just love. He taught me the habit of defending the indefensible positions. Not that that's at all connected. Not that that's at all connected with being a Liberal Democrat, I understand. He taught me, above all, very essential for a Liberal, the fact that you shouldn't be frightened to hold a minority opinion. It doesn't matter if you're alone, if you've argued the case and you believe it to be right. And he taught me an absolute detestation of the class system and the class structure. A lot of other things he taught me as well. And that last, the fact that, you know, I think that the creation of a meritocratic Britain is absolutely crucial. It was what made me first a socialist in the days when Tom McNally was a socialist. But I left a bit earlier than him because I was slightly ahead of him. But then after a period in the wilderness, a Liberal. So I think it's my dad that began to make me a Liberal, although it's been a long journey.